and welcome. We are in the peak of high summer. That means that the mornings are not really cool anymore. The afternoons are kind of sweltering. And I am feeling a hankering for reaching for the books that I read in the summers of my youthhood. So I think it kind of started with my reread of Thornbirds. I read that so long ago now. I wasn't young when I read that. I was probably in my early 20s. But as I've been reading that and really thinking through this experience of rereading, I'm really have been feeling like I want to read something that I read in my childhood. Since I grew up in the 80s, that means a reread of The Babysitter's Club, The Saddle Club, Sweet Valley Twins. So I have carved out this day to be able to pick these back up and reread them and see if I enjoy them as much as I did years ago. In preparation for that, I've actually done a little bit of research to just share with you. So the Saddle Club started being published in like 1988, and they're written by Bonnie Bryant. She was, I think, part of most of these books. I think there's about 100 of these. Supposedly she wrote the core. I don't know if that's an outline, and then maybe had some ghostwriters help kind of flesh out details. So she was a very important part of writing the Saddle Club. This, of course, is the story of girls who are horse lovers. They're getting riding lessons. They're part of a stable. They still have the same drama, but horses are a key component of all of these plots. And then, of course, we have The Babysitter's Club. The Babysitter's Club is your quintessential 1980s series. This came out in 1986, the first book, and they're written by Anne Martin. Anne Martin wrote the first 35 books of these, and then she outsourced it to have ghostwriters writing more. And this had huge spin-off. You had the Little Sisters that had the Babysitter Club's Little Sister books, and it just went on and on. I know that I read the first probably 20 of them and really enjoyed them, and I'm excited to dive back into them. I haven't reread them since I read them in the 80s. And then last, but definitely not least, I have the Sweet Valley Twins. This is written by ghostwriters entirely. I didn't realize this, but it says on the cover, inspired by Francine Pascal. And it turns out, as I did my research, the original books that Francine Pascal wrote are the Sweet Valley High books, which I remember reading and not liking as much. So I definitely started on these before jumping into Sweet Valley High. And so I'm not sure if that's why. I don't know if I was too young for Sweet Valley High, but I don't even think we have the Sweet Valley High anymore here on our shelves, but we do have the first, 25 or 26 of the Sweet Valley Twins, because I loved them so very much. These were, while I loved the Babysitter Club and read the Saddle Club, Sweet Valley Twins, for whatever reason, was my sweet spot. I don't know if I was infatuated with the idea of having a twin. I don't have a sister, and so maybe it was just that sisterly bond. So it's interesting because inside of this, it says that these are written by Jamie Suzanne. So I was like, well, who's Jamie Suzanne? What else did Jamie Suzanne write? And it turns out that Jamie Suzanne is a pen name for a whole bunch of authors. So much as we learned about the Edward Stratemeyer Syndicate with Carole and Keene, this is the same concept. It just really kind of highlights how much of an influence the Stratemeyer Syndicate had on publishing with this ghost writing idea, because it has continued to this day. So I am going to finish my tea and get started on my day of rereading 3 of my most favorite nostalgic series from the 1980s. It's just as I remembered it, and I still really love it. It is definitely my youthhood in a book. All right, now I'm going to try the Babysitter's Club and see how that stands the test of time. The Babysitter's Club was also as fantastic as I remembered it. This had, it's a thicker book, so it just had a little bit more serious plots in here. But I loved it so much, and reading it, I just was like, oh yeah. Like, for instance, they have to write in the diary, the journal, and we have all of their handwriting. And when I turned to the first one, I was like, oh yeah, that's right. Claudia's handwriting is like really struggling. So, fantastic. Okay, now I'm going to read The Saddle Club, the first one in that series, and we'll see how that stands up to the test of time. So far, it's pretty promising because these two were just as great as I remembered. I forgot that she named her cat Madonna. I have finished with my reread. I got through 7 books today, and I'm going to share with you my thoughts. So I'm going to start with The Saddle Club. The first one's Horse Crazy. It is just as I remembered it, with the drama and the girls at the stable. And as I was thinking, I could continue reading this, I looked for the second book in the series and realized that we don't have it. So as I was looking to see, can I get it on Thrift Books? There was a spoiler, and I realized why we don't have the second book, which is, as I'm learning, I am really not a fan of reading about animal trauma, and the second book has animal trauma in it. So apparently we just have the first book and then we skip right to the third. And I decided at that point that I was just going to go ahead and just continue on to the 2 series left that I was enjoying a little bit more than Saddle Club, so I just read the first book. For the Babysitter's Club, I really enjoyed my reread enough that I jumped into the second book, and I'm really glad that I did because I had forgotten a few things. So, first of all, I know I mentioned earlier that this has like their handwriting in it for their little journal that they keep to kind of share information. And I loved that. When I was reading it, I was just brought right back to the first time I read it with all of their handwriting. And I also remembered that each book is from a different perspective of each member of the Babysitter's Club. And that happens too when Dawn joins in later. We also get a book from her perspective. And I sort of forgot that, but as I was reading this first one, I was like, Kristy, I feel like I don't know Kristy that well, but I felt like I knew Claudia better, and Stacey, and even Marianne, and again, Dawn. So it's interesting that I have remembered their personalities, and I don't know if it's because I related to them or connected more with them. The other thing I am remembering is each one has like a little mystery, at least at the beginning, and I found myself, as I was reading it, I remembered kind of how it all resolved. So I really enjoyed it. I definitely think that Anne Martin's writing style is a little bit more savvy and complex than, for instance, Saddle Club and even Sweet Valley Twins. The descriptions, I think, have more depth, and I just think that there is just a better kind of writing skill that goes into the Babysitters Club, so you can really see why there is such a following for these books. So I really enjoyed reading these, and definitely can see myself just continuing the series. The series that I did read the most of is the Sweet Valley Twins. So I actually read 4 Sweet Valley Twins. Like I said at the very beginning this morning, these were the books that I loved the most. And so I really kind of just felt like I was right back in it and enjoyed it. So the thing I didn't remember is there's a lot of gaslighting and manipulation and sneakiness, and, for me kind of thinking like I loved it because of the sisterly relationships. These sisters are kind of ruthless with each other. They are, telling things about each other. They're, in the first one, Jessica dresses up and pretends to be Elizabeth and plays this really mean trick on someone. So I had forgotten that part, but I did like it. And then I went ahead and skipped ahead to 20. So I read the first 3, and then I thought, you know what, I'm going to skip ahead to 20, which I remember reading. I love this cover. We end up with the boosters. So at the beginning, we start with the unicorns, which is the club of the girls who love purple. But then we end up with the boosters and the cheerleading and the basketball. There's just so much that I remembered. So I really enjoyed them as well. But again, these girls are definitely not kind. There's a lot of mean-spiritedness in it, which I think is not the case in the Babysitters Club. So I would love to know what series you remember reading in the summers of your youthhood, of your childhood, which ones you would recommend also. And then let me know if you read the Saddle Club or the Babysitters Club or Sweet Valley Twins or even Sweet Valley High, which one of those series you remember loving the most. So as always, you guys, thanks so much for watching, and until next time.